literally just 5 minutes before we went live, I got an email from Christopher Dunn on his official site. I haven't even read it yet myself, but I can I can read it with all you guys. So what happened, let's just roll it back, is a couple of days ago, I got an Instagram message, and a follower sent me a link to a YouTube video that had just come out, and they were like, hey, is this true? Is there structures underneath the pyramid? And I was like, what is this? So I looked at the link, but then I looked at the video on YouTube, and I was like, where are they getting this information from? Because I can't, and I kind of Googled it, nothing came up. Eventually I followed it through, and what I could guess was that there was a press release of an announcement of some data that was going to be announced. So it was a bit of a like Chinese whispers of like apparently some Italian scientists had used SAR scanning, like a satellite scanning system, which is legit technology, and it's been used in other fields, not really archaeology. So it's been used successfully in sort of like agriculture and things like that. But apparently there is a scientist who has developed new software, and he's saying that you can use this software to then transfer this like legit technology into scanning. And apparently you can use satellites, so it's non-invasive, and you can kind of scan deeper than you previously thought you could. But all his like methodology, like how he kind of got the software and how to use the software, that he was announcing that he was going to explain it all in this conference that was happening in Italy. Now, unfortunately, all of the scientists are Italian and they don't speak English. So there is like there is a communication block between the world, unless you speak Italian. But there is a guy called Trevor Grassi who has a YouTube channel called @TrevorGrassi, and he was the guy that he knew some of the Italian team. I think he's been following their work, and they sent him a copy of the abstract summary of the press release. So none of the press were picking it up. Just Trevor Grassi put it on his Facebook because he was excited. So he got full permission to share it with the team. The team were like, yeah, announce that we are going to be sharing this soon with the world. I don't think the team expected that it was going to hit the world quite so quick. So I very quickly just made a TikTok because I thought, oh, this is cool. There's news that something's going to be announced soon. So I made the TikTok, and then that kind of shot off. And then very quickly, within 48 hours, it's already on Joe Rogan. Like the actual news stations are starting to pick it up now. Everyone's fighting. You've got really angry academics. Zahi Hawass has officially just done a announcement saying that it's completely a load of rubbish. They have no permission to scan the pyramids. But the problem is that you don't need permission to scan from a satellite. So if this technology is, and this software using the technology is viable, and you can kind of scan anywhere that a satellite crosses, it's going to be interesting to see what the implications of that are, like globally, because you don't really,
I know, right? We're getting into a weird place.
We have land laws where you have to permission to go and put scanners on the ground, but if you don't need to put anything on the ground, like this pyramid scanning team that have been doing it since 2016 in and around the Great Pyramid, they had to get all the permissions. You have to do it in line and with affiliation with Egypt's officials, which is very hard to do, to get anything past the Egyptian officials. It's like take 20 years, a lot of money and a lot of time. So that's going to be really interesting to see if everyone's going to start going, well, you need permission to scan my air.
Well, that's something like that's definitely coming. Man, I bet you the Egyptian officials are absolutely pissed about this.
So they're very much so. So what happened like in 2008, with the Hawara pyramid scans, there was a similar situation where a team got legit funding and they got permission from Egypt to go and scan all around the Hawara pyramid, where the labyrinth of Herodotus said that he visited the labyrinth historically. So we've got like historical evidence that it was there, but right now it's all hidden under sand and a water table. Anyway, so they did like scans, and they came back with LiDAR. I believe it was LiDAR and ground penetrating radar scans that showed structures underneath the Hawara pyramid, and what they thought they had like legitimate evidence of the labyrinth. And then they wanted to like publicize the information, and I think the Egyptian like antiquities, the authorities didn't want to announce it, or they wanted to make sure that, you know, Zahi likes to announce everything first himself. And there was a bit of contention, and they basically blocked the team from releasing the results until they wanted to do it on their timeline. And then they actually, I think the Hawara team did do something like maybe they jumped the gun. I'm not entirely sure on the timeline, but they basically got slapped with like a legal injunction being like, you cannot talk about your findings. And then everything, because they announced that it was all going to be, a paper was going to come out, and then it all kind of just fizzled away. And then it was only after like 10 years after that the Hawara team decided, no, stuff it, we are going to release our findings. So they've released the findings, but not in conjunction with the Egyptian authorities, and it's all a bit so we do know that there's a history of the Egyptian authorities slapping injunctions, not wanting things unless they are 100% on top of it, at the forefront of it, etc., etc. I'm not saying this has happened with they have nothing to do with the SAR scanning, but it's interesting. But also there is a loads of misinformation, because I can see what in the abstract is a very small amount of information, which is essentially this: they've used some software, they've scanned in and around the Khafre pyramid, not the Great Pyramid. There's confusion about which pyramid it is. It's the middle one, the one that's built literally into the bedrock, part of the base of the pyramid. And I think like the first 2 levels on one side is bedrock. I love the middle pyramid. I think I like it more than the Great Pyramid. But so it's the Khafre pyramid, and there's a big confusion because the team released a paper in 2022 that was all about scanning the Great Pyramid. So there's a big confusion about which pyramid they're talking about, whether there's 2 papers, one that's yet to come out and one that has come out. I saw an academic review the original paper saying that the SAR technology is legit, but there are errors in that paper. Like they claim that the Great Pyramid is built in majority of granite, so they've got some fundamental things wrong.
Yeah.
So it was kind of and then also what complicates everything is that part of the team, the scientists leading this team, some of them have some very, very strong alternative theories. And that, I fear, is endangering a lot of getting any genuine science over the line, because if you caveat maybe some genuine data, but you caveat it with something that's super alternative, like aliens or lost civilizations, I think you're going to do more damage. So I'm praying that when they do release this paper, that it's going to be a solely scientific data paper, and that they're not going to try and caveat at this point. Once that data's got over the line, if you can prove that the technology works, and I think how they're going to prove it, when I spoke to Trevor, he was like, well, if you can prove that the SAR satellite scans can, for example, scan the Osiris shaft, and if the scan data shows the Osiris shaft in complete configuration that we know it is, so that you can like confirm, so that I think it'll be quite easy to test whether or not you can scan and how far down. There's also a lot of confusion about how deep this thing goes. So there's what they are essentially saying is that they found 5 chambers, unknown chambers, inside the Khafre pyramid, and the chamber shapes look to be the same shape as the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. So that 6 blocks of granite with a vaulted ceiling, but there's 5 of them. That's what they're interpreting these scans as. And then underneath the 5 vaulted chambers are 8 hollow cylindrical, like well shafts. Some people call them pillars. The team are saying that they're definitely hollow, and they have sort of spiral, maybe passageways or walkways or some sort of spiraling around these well shafts, and the well shafts go down for 648 meters, and then the pillars are apparently aligned north to south perfectly, and they're perfectly, like, they're not random pillars. They are there's 8 of them, and they're in pairs, and they've got 4 north facing, 4 south facing, and each of the 4 pillars, 2 sets of 4, go into hollow chamber of 80 meter by 80 meter, like kind of 80 meter cubes, and that's hollow. And then they're saying that they need more research into this, but they think that they can see a network of like underground tunnels, very similar to like Derinkuyu in Turkey. But they're saying, and this is what I need to clarify, I'm not sure whether they're saying there's 2 kilometers of tunnels, because that is very possible, because there's 2 kilometers of tunnels in Derinkuyu. Or are they trying to say that the network of tunnels is 2 kilometers below the surface? I don't believe that would be possible.
Yeah, that's way too deep.
But again, we're dealing with an English translation,
sure,
of an Italian original summary. And I think that things like that can be lost, because it makes such a difference whether or not are you talking about 2 kilometers of tunnel system, or are you talking about 2 kilometers below the Earth's surface? So again, I'm just holding loads of space, because we don't know yet. We can't, you can't like fully say for sure, oh, that's a load of crap. I'm not a SAR scan expert. So, I definitely don't know what this new software that this guy is saying he's used to turn this legitimate technology into something else. So I'm waiting for them to do what they say they're going to do and fulfill the announcement. And until then, we all just have to kind of wait. But we don't have to wait long, because I think in about an hour's time, over on a YouTube channel called Expedition, Nicole, what's that second name? I think it's like Cicelo. I put a link in my previous YouTube video. I've put a link to the new video, and we might put it in the description here. The Italian team they're posting another video from the conference that happened last week. Apparently them sitting down and explaining the technology and the scanning software and things. So more information is going to be coming out. But I've seen all kinds of people reporting that there are like 2 kilometer columns going down into the earth, and I'm like, no, that's not what was said. And yeah, so it's interesting. Where I sit on it is that the Giza Plateau is infested with shafts.
Yeah.
And we know that like the Osiris shaft goes down 125 foot. And we know that the Osiris shaft doesn't just end. Not the Osiris shaft. Yeah, the Osiris shaft. The Osiris shaft doesn't end there. That there are tunnels that go along the causeway. Yeah, and there are it is a rat run. There is a reason why there are so many locked gated entrances to go the Giza Plateau. There's these iron bars and gates everywhere, because it's dangerous, because shafts just drop. They drop. You can drop like a rock down, and it just disappears. You can't see where it lands. So to me, it makes complete sense that there would be and could be things under there that we just have not yet found.
Oh, and there absolutely are. I mean, I was I was under the I was in the subterranean chamber under the Great Pyramid on our last night in Egypt, and I was crawling through that. I was crawling through, the subterranean chamber, and then there's that little grate that you can push off to the side, and you can go in that little 2 foot by 2 foot hole, and it goes 150 feet off to the west. I crawled all the way back at the end of that, and I was laying there thinking, like, it's so weird that I'm down here underneath the Great Pyramid, hundreds of feet below the ground. And I was thinking, where the heck did they anticipate this shaft to go? If they were making this to connect to something clearly or to lead off to somewhere, there has to be so much more like this all around the Giza Plateau. And that there is when you're walking around. When you walk off to that, why am I thinking of, is it, man, it begins with a K. His name begins with Kepchef something. It's the pyramid that's way off on the other side of the desert near the Mahdi outcrop. And you can walk over there, and it's this big valley that has all these grates and rusted metal bars covering up all the tombs and shafts. And the name is escaping me right now. But they think that it was a tomb of some later pharaoh who buried himself there. But I was just thinking, man, there's just so much that whole Giza the whole Giza Plateau is just this vast, intricate network of shafts and tunnels that go underneath the ground that date from thousands and thousands of years of people, carving into that bedrock.
Mhm.
I answered a question the other day on a Q&A. Somebody asked me what I thought the likelihood of there being something underneath the Sphinx, and I was like, well, the Hall of Records thing, the Edgar Casey Hall of Records thing, I was like, I can't give anybody any guarantee to that, but is it very possible that there is some kind of tunnel, something underneath the Sphinx? Yeah, probably, because the entire Giza Plateau is covered with tunnels.
Yeah. Like, it would be weirder
It's
if
probably
there
more
was
the
if
Giza
there
Plateau
wasn't.
is sorry, yeah. The Giza Plateau is probably more hollow than it is solid. That's how many tunnels and shafts
100%.
there are around
And
Giza.
I remember on a tour in Egypt, we learned that just in front of the Sphinx, when they were drilling down to find the water table. So this was more recent. They drilled right down. I want to try and guess what it was. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was 16 meters, not feet, because 16 feet is not very long. But they drilled down to find the water table, because under the Sphinx, the water table is rising, and there's going to be long-term issues there. And they hit granite, and when they were drilling down through the
Mhm,
bedrock, and they hit granite, and they were like, what is granite doing 16 meters down there?
mhm.
And it was kind of excused away by saying, oh, well, that used to be like a dock, because it's true, there was like a kind of dock
Yeah.
right up to the Sphinx at some point in antiquity. And they were saying that, oh, well, when they moved the granite block to the plateau, they must have dropped one into the water, and it's just sort of gone down in the sediment.
Ah,
16 meters is a long way down.
yeah.
But yeah, so there is granite down under there, and I think they smashed into it when they were drilling the water table, checking the water table. So we know that there's granite 16 meters down under there, whether it's a sedimented piece of something that's fallen off when they did the Valley Temple, or they've hit the top of some granite thing. We know that they used granite within a lot of their structures, like within the chambers
Mhm,
of the pyramid chambers, the granite walls. We know that where else is the granite? The granite's used, well, to case the outside of temples. We know that the Hawara pyramid, that's what they believe that they were finding underneath the whole water table at Hawara. They were finding like solid granite
yeah.
on the LiDAR scan. So, okay, so that's one thing. So I've got that. Obviously, we've got all of the like local legend and the local lore about kids saying that they remember running into tunnels and it going for a long time.
Mhm, mhm,
The legend that there are that there are tunnels that connect the Giza Plateau to Saqqara, and you can run back. Well, back in the day,
mm.
you could run
Yeah,
back
I've
and
heard of
forth.
this.
So like in a way, the fact that scans are showing that there's something going on under the pyramid, like it's not that wild. Because also we know that the pyramid scanning project, like, is everyone just forgetting that they just found a void in the Great Pyramid the size of a jumbo jet?
Yeah.
And like, so if
Oh,
you it's like that's been like confirmed by the Egyptian
yeah.
authorities, because they were allowed to be at the forefront and announce that one and be all over
I
that.
gotta I gotta tell you something.
Go on.
Okay, so when I was in Egypt, I was spending some time with this young, Egyptologist, really cool guy,
Yep.
probably in his early 30s or so. He said that, his goal is to one day have Zahi's position and do things differently in Egypt. I'm not gonna say his name.
Go on, lad.
Um but, really cool guy, very open-minded. I don't he's not into, like, the lost 12,000-year-old civilization thing, but he's
Mhm.
very open-minded about, "Oh, yeah, it really is interesting how these things were done, and we can't explain it." He's more I
Mhm.
guess he's more open to hearing about lost technology, lost tools, techniques, that kinda thing. Um, Really cool guy, and so I was talking to him about the pyramid voids, and I was asking him. We were talking about, what do you think is going to be found in it? And I was asking him, when are they actually going to send a camera up there and scan these things? And he said that not only is there the two chambers that were discovered in the Great Pyramid, the one that's above the entryway, and then there's the other one that's kind of like a duplicate Grand Gallery, they think,
Yeah, it
at the
could be
same
a mirror
time.
image grand gallery. Yeah.
And he said there are other voids in the other pyramids that have been found as well. And he pulls out his phone, and I'm standing on a felucca with him at
Mhm.
like 1 o'clock in the morning, and he pulls out his phone and he shows me a picture of the inside of a chamber I've never seen before. And he goes, "Look at that." And I went,
Wait, like a photograph or like a scan?
"No, a photo." And he goes, "Look at that." And I was like, "What pyramid is that at?" And he goes, "It's at Giza." And I
Oh,
said, "The
that
Great."
narrows it down. Great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I said, "When did this happen?" And he's like, "Recently." And he
Right.
he wouldn't say anything more than that, but there are photos of scans that exist, or I'm sorry, there are photos that have already been taken,
Of
and
interiors.
some of these things have already been done. I asked him, I said, "Why, why does this happen? Why does this take so long?" Do you remember the news about the tunnels under Sacsayhuaman that came out in Peru recently?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody watching, I was inside of those tunnels in September. The news just came out about this, and it blew my mind. And so I was asking the guy, I was like, "Why do these things take so long?" And he said, "Well, in Egypt, um, they have a media and marketing department, and it's all planned out."
Oh,
And
100%.
he's like, "It's planned 2 years out. It's all about tourism, getting people to come
Mhm.
into Egypt." So he said, "We don't want to knock too many things out at once, because if you spill all the cards at once, you only get that one influx of tourism that will come within the next year to see the new discoveries." So what he was like, "There's no real delay on discoveries being made. It's delay on the release of information." And he said, so a lot of the stuff has already been done. He said some of it gets done in the middle of the night or early in the morning before anybody shows up. He said, but it's all about the marketing. And Zahi Hawass is deeply, tied into that. He makes a ton of money on,
Mhm.
on book sales and whatever TV stuff. So, anyways, yes, it blew my mind that, but you kind of know it, but it just blew my mind when I saw a photo for the first time that I still have never seen. When this photo comes out one day,
Yeah.
I'll tell you
You'll be
guys,
like
that's the photo.
89 and you'll be like, "I saw that back
I
in the day."
saw that photo back in the early 20s.
But yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that there are things that they're sitting on because I remember when I first went to Egypt in 2020 and we went into the Great Pyramid and all of the Japanese and Swedish and they all the kit was there for the scannings and at that point we were hearing rumors about things being found and whatnot. And then it wasn't until years later that they did the press announcement. And I was like, also, I know that that's only a smidgen of what they actually found, but of course, they're gonna stagger it. And I kind of don't blame them from like
Mhm.
from an economic point of view because 90% of Egypt is run on tourism, and so they
Yeah.
need to extend that for as long as possible. So I get it from a business side, but
I
it's
I
really
think that's
annoying.
Yeah, I think it's so true that you say that. I think that's something those of us who love this kind of have to have a little bit of sympathy, though, because it is us, it's everybody here watching, it's our tourist dollars that allow Egyptology to continue. So they have to take the most strategic approach. That's not to say that the people who run these organizations, like exactly the same kind of people in the US that run these organizations, are the
Mhm,
most, morally straight up, good people. But I don't really know what an alternative is for them. If they release it all out there, they'll get a huge influx of tourism in 1 year. But then 24 months from now, they're like sitting on their hands and wishing,
yeah,
oh man, what if we had waited till now to release it? Then we get all new tours. They're just
mhm,
trying to keep their country afloat. And I should say that it's a wonderful thing that Egypt is so closely tied to the Western world, because it keeps Egypt as a safe place to travel to. So, otherwise, like, we want to keep Egypt in alliance with the UK and with the United States.
mhm.
Um, the United States, I think the number one country that we donate to is Egypt. So there's a, we have to have some kind of sympathy there for like why they plan things the way they do. But it is frustrating that things are pushed off so far, you know? So,
I'm just like quickly looking through the Chris Dunn email about his like official what he's sort of saying. Um, he's he said he's not qualified to judge any of the findings, which is fair. Like nobody is, apart from
mhm,
SAR experts. And even then, they're saying this Filippo um, Giandi guy is saying that it's like a new software that of using that
mm,
technology. So until he can fully explain what his methodology is, it's very difficult to categorically say yes or no. Yeah, similarly, I'm not qualified to find the findings of the SAR scanning team. However, I'd love to know how geometrically accurate the CAD drawings are, because the 3D imagery that they're like making interpretations out of the raw scan data, which look like very drunk
mm,
photos. And then, however, I'd love to, yes, because they seem to represent a massive Tesla like electromagnetic earthquake machine. This is
mm,
Christopher Dunn's official thing of this. But even without the CAD, I believe there's enough in the scans to warrant further investigation, which is true. The original scan imagery is very like, I can't really see anything. However, the team then reposted a new image that was not on the original abstract, which showed sort of more clearly this idea of these 8 pillars. You can actually see like 8 pillars,
mhm,
and I'm not a scan expert, but I think that the color scheme going from like blue to green to red, I believe that like red is like hollowness. Um,
mm,
I'm just speculating. I don't know. But okay, so Christopher Dunn thinks that the idea of these like a coiled hollow structures is like a Tesla-like electromagnetic. I'd like to attach a caveat to my enthusiasm of the work of the SAR research team and the imagination it has sparked. That's put very well, because that's why it's fun. I think anybody right now who's really like calling BS on it, I'm like, come on, like have some fun with it. The imagination of this is so fun and wild, and that's why I love it. I love the what if, and I'm not like really emotionally or academically attached to the outcome of this, so I'm just excited
exactly.
about I'm excited about what it is, and any eyes on Egypt and history and like getting the debate up is positive for me. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
he
that's
got
the thing I love about you is that you're not emotionally attached to the outcome of any of this. You just find it interesting and
I
worth
just had
talking
fun.
about.
And if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, like it doesn't damage my ego in any way. Like I will happily make another video and be like, I've done that before actually, where there was some sort of satellite scan imagery that I saw in a documentary for Atlantis about the Ricat structure.
Mhm.
So I made a TikTok about it. And then I immediately, when I like double checked my research, it turns out that the images that were shown in the documentary were actually Google images. They weren't the scan. So I'm happy to go,
Mm.
whoops, whoopsie daisy. Sorry to excite you all. I got that wrong. So yeah,
Alright.
just more people need to get better at putting their hand up and being like, nah, no, that didn't turn out to be quite what we thought, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So Christopher Dunn's saying so he'd like to caveat it. We must keep in mind that considering what he wrote in his book, he has confirmation bias. Cool. And there should always be amount of healthy skepticism with anything seems so firmly embedded in the realm of science fiction to ancient monuments. Well done, Chris. We're living in exciting times. If it turns out to be fictional, it's more compelling and interesting fiction than the pyramids as tombs theory, which I agree with. Like, and if it's proven to be fact, then we could be on the threshold of a bright and harmonious future. Um, yeah, and then he quotes someone called Charles Holland in 1902. He was the United States Commissioner of Patents until 1901, and he said, in my opinion, all previous advances in the various lines of invention will appear totally insignificant when compared to those which the present century will witness. I almost wish that I might live my life over again to see the wonders that are at the threshold.
Mm.
The pyramids are mystical and magical. They've inspired generations of travelers and deeply affect the visitors who have the privilege of gaining entry to them, myself included. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Mm.
He's done some links to
That's cool.
things, and because I think in his book, what he's saying is that there was a component they were talking about pulse generators, in the theorization of energy, something being energy. Anyway, he was just saying that, ironically, in his book, he said that the deeper that you can penetrate into the indigenous rock, the more powerful a generator would be. So he's saying, like, if it's true that there's these things are 600 meters thing, it would make sense to the theory of it being
Sure.
yeah, I'm just scanning Christopher Dunn's thing. I'll read that again properly later, but that's cool. And then we've got, on the opposite thing, we've got Zahir Was, who is saying absolutely not, it's all crap, the technology doesn't work. He's not across it, they don't have permission
I
to
need a
scan.
boo. We need a boo sound effect for the show.
Zahir Was, it's interesting. I wonder if they'd gone to Zahir Was with the findings and said, you can verify this and you can announce this. I wonder if he'd be so quick to be like, maybe.
No,
maybe
he was quick to jump in that YouTube video with Mr. Beast. So
okay.
long as you pay him enough, he'd be down to do it.
I find it weird because he's not the Minister of Antiquities anymore,
He's
right?
not.
Because he got sacked from that job because he literally stole and sold black market antiquities, I believe,
Yeah.
allegedly.
I think the reality is the reason he's still in the position that they're in is because all those guys are involved in that. So, they're kind of like, Zahi, don't do that, and
Yeah,
so we're going to remove you from your position, but you're still going to have your position. Not
yeah.
technically. That's
He's been put
where it's
on the naughty step.
yeah. So a lot of that is going on in Egypt. So much of that. It's
Yeah.
sad.
So that's yeah, that's really interesting. So I think somebody also put in the comments, they said that Trevor said that yes, it's not 2 kilometers down, it's
Mm.
2 kilometers worth of, which
Okay.
makes
Like
more sense.
volume or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 2 kilometer network of
Mhm.
tunnel systems, not 2 kilometers down into the earth. Because yeah, I mean, I don't know, wonder how deep Darren Kuru is, but and also there's a theory separate before all this came out. There was Matt Simpson, who does Ancient Architects YouTube channel. He did a video looking at the very real possibility that the Madai people, who were indigenous to the area around Giza
Yeah.
before the official dynastic Egyptians, that he believed there's a really good argument that they are the ones that dug the subterranean chamber, and
Mm.
that there's like a thing called the grotto in the Great Pyramid, which is like a weird well shaft that goes into a grotto, and basically there's evidence like it matches, like archaeologically, these Madai people used to have a tradition of digging into bedrock, and they would create these like kind of grottos.
Mm.
And so he had a really good there's a really good argument that all of the subterranean stuff on the Giza Plateau is pre-dynastic, and then there's a reason why the pyramids were then built on top of these like underground established things. So
Yeah,
that was interesting.
that's really interesting. I was in Egypt with a different Egyptologist, and I was asking him. I was saying, I don't know where we got talking about this. It wasn't because of scans. It was, I can't remember, but I was saying, there's shaft tombs all over Giza. And I was saying, what is the likelihood? I mean, think about the vast area that these pyramids take up. What's the likelihood that these guys had to build on top of other shafts that lead somewhere and have contents in them, but are blocked off because of the base of the pyramid sits on top of the opening? And they were like, no, that's not that's not the case. They wouldn't have done that. I'm like, why? What do you mean why? It's like, what do you mean no? Why would that not be possible? There's holes in the ground across this whole plateau. You don't think there's some tombs or shafts that are being covered up by this pyramid that are inaccessible? And if you were to dig down and over, or somehow scan over, I feel like you would almost certainly see things. And the most boring answer to all of this could, just from my perspective, could just be, which isn't, it's still pretty cool. The most boring answer to all this is that there could be tombs that are sealed off because the pyramid covered up its entrance. But if those are in there, then everything that was in there is perfectly preserved just the way it was thousands of years ago. That's the
Mhm.
most boring answer. Everything other than that is even cooler. So I hope that something comes from this, you know?
Well, now they've made some pretty big claims, and so they're gonna need some pretty big proof
Yeah.
to I mean, yeah, I would not wanna be in these guys' positions. Again, just to repeat, they are announcing on the Expedition YouTube channel, um, probably now, it's going live. I think it's either another clip or maybe the whole clip of the conference that was and just to also clarify that the whole conference wasn't about the Khafre scanning pyramid project. It was
Mhm.
one part of the rest of it because I think the whole conference encapsulated other things because it was all about being a temporal gateway, which isn't to do with the Khafre scanning pyramid directly. So that a lot of people saw this like really dodgy graphic on the conference thing and were like, "Oh, it's a load of nonsense." But I think don't be so quick. They need to be very careful with their graphics moving forward because you don't want temporal gateway AI
Mhm,
graphics on
mhm, mhm.
if you're trying to talk about legit science.